right, we're good to go. Thank you. All right, welcome to the Infrastructure Task Force of meeting of August 2, 2021. Patricia, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Carolyn Alon, present. Al Belton,
Here.
Warrenson,
Yeah.
Scott, Carol Jones,
Here.
Michael Martin,
Here.
Dave Leslie,
Here.
Colin Mack.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda? Does everybody have a chance to look at it? Can I get- Peter Partington moves, Ralph Selfman seconds, and the reason I'm saying that is because you will notice that we do not have our note taker here, a stenographer, and they will do the notes from the video. So at some point, if somebody makes a resolution, we have to be very sure to mention who made it, who seconded it. Very good. Okay. Approval of previous meeting minutes of June 7th, 2021. They were sent out to everybody. Do I have any comments on the minutes?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Zell.
Naturally.
That's all right. You keep us honest.
On page 9, the
Excuse me, Pat, can we put the minutes up so people can follow? Thank you so much, dear.
on the bottom paragraph, it starts, Mr. Zeltman advised that one of his primary concerns was for, should insert, by the way, I read this, and it's a kind of a composite of both the static fire hydrant testing and the dynamic or flowing fire hydrant testing. So I had to do some work. I checked on the video. Anyone who's interested at the time of 4:16 p.m. to get this
What page were you on, Ralph?
page 9.
Thank you very much. Continue.
So I would like to keep the Mr. Zeltman advised that one of his primary concerns was for, and then insert the city to perform dynamic fire flow testing, particularly, and then kill the rest of the sentence and continue it with, at those suspicious areas to ensure the fire hydrants can deliver the required fire flows, maintaining a minimum residual pressure of 20 psi. Period.
Can you read it all, that whole sentence?
Sure, let me read the whole thing with the corrections
So we're
already.
on page 9. This is page 9. This is
Miss-
page 9. Yes, go on.
Mr. Zeltman
This is-
advised
Yes.
that one of his primary concerns was for the city to perform dynamic fire flow testing, particularly at those suspicious areas to ensure the fire hydrants can deliver the required fire flows, maintaining a minimum residual pressure of 20 psi.
So that is an addition to what is here, or
This is a replacement. This is basically replacing the first sentence there.
And you say you checked this with the
I checked it with the video, and the time when I made that statement was 4:16 p.m. So I had to listen to it, which demonstrates the difficulty of preparing minutes, because I had to, even though I said it, I had to listen to it a couple of times to make sure I was saying what I said from there. That's
Does anybody have any objections to that?
Well, we have to ask ourselves, what would Roosevelt say?
Well, he would probably say no, but he's a stickler. And, we've had this issue before. And, there's always going to be a situation where taking of minutes, you have to have some discretion. And my committee member says that he checked it and that was what he said and that was what he meant. I'm inclined to accept his correction. Anybody not accepting that?
I could further say that, check it out.
No, we trust you. Okay. So with that correction, are there any other comments on the minutes?
I just had
Yes,
one comment on page 6.
Page 6.
And look, I didn't go back and listen to the videos, I'll be honest with you all. So I'm going largely on recollection and just knowing myself. And, you know, you can see the paragraph that begins with my name. Largely it's correct, other than that, I really don't recall speaking in such definitive terms. I think I would have said that it could constitute the basis for a moratorium, and that in the sentence where it says he felt the existence of this connection should be, I believe I would have said could be. So I don't know all the facts in any of these hypotheticals, so that's why I'm surprised I would say that it's so definitive. So I don't care, to be honest with you, if this is revised as much as maybe just this record reflects what I believe would have been a more accurate statement, as I'm saying it today.
And I would think that we'd put that on the record at this meeting, that
Fine.
you mentioned that.
Fine, yeah.
Because that significantly, substantially changes.
It is, and like I said, I didn't go back and listen to it, so I would be shocked if I had used those
You said
words. Yeah, but
Okay.
just for the record.
So for today, we will make sure that the person who is taking the minutes for this, please reflect that Mr. Marshall felt that the words were not his words.
Right. I mean, if you look at the last clause, why I even mentioned that you've probably got a fact dispute. You're going to have a disagreement among. I'm saying
It would make sense.
It would be
The context
right.
makes sense. Yes. Okay.
So basically, everywhere in that paragraph where there's a would, it should be a could.
Could, yeah.
You think you would have said
Could
that.
or may. Yeah.
Well, how does everybody feel? Do you want to make that correction?
I'm fine with that, and actually, I don't have any problem.
Okay. Well, then the minutes will be thus corrected. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
Peter moves and Ralph seconds. Everyone in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that Mr. Ladd has joined the meeting. Okay. General discussion and comments by the committee members. Can we hold that for a minute? And can we welcome Abby, the new interim director, and have a few words from Abby?
Good afternoon. Thank you,
Please,
Madam
the floor
Chair.
is yours.
My name is Talal Abikuram. I'm the interim public works director. I'm also holding currently the assistant public works director for utilities. I have been with the city for about 8 years now. I have occupied the assistant public works for engineering position and utility, and now I'm the interim public works director. I have 4 years of experience in the business, in the engineering and construction world, both on the contractor side as well as the consultant side. I've been in this region since 1994. I have a bachelor in civil engineering from Northeastern University in Boston, a master in engineering, civil engineering, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, a master in construction management from Florida International University, and a master in management from Northwestern University, an executive certificate in project management from FPU. I'm a certified general contractor in the state of Florida, certified underground utility contractor in Florida, also certified as a building inspector. I'm the Garden Professional Association. I'm a certified project management professional, certified construction management manager, certified DBIA professional, and a certified cost engineer. Work in utilities and engineering construction in this area. I haven't done project over $500 million in this area. In South Florida, I'm familiar with all the aspects of what the city is doing, both infrastructure as well as utility. Thank you.
Okay. Very
Yes,
impressive.
more. I have over 35 articles peer-reviewed, published, and I was active in a lot of professional.
Okay, well, thank you, and we're very happy to have you.
Thank you, Madam.
Do you have any idea from the city manager's perspective what the procedure is going to be to fill the position permanently?
As it was put to me, in an interim capacity, the city manager has indicated that they want to recruit, but I don't have an immediate information about that timeline. For the time being, I am in that position in addition to the utilities. And also, since we're having this discussion, I will be designating an appointment of Omar to be my designee to the board. I also would like to welcome a new assistant director, public works director for engineering, Vincent Morello. He came to us via Miami-Dade County as well as Broward County. So we have currently two assistant directors on the engineering side. That's Victor Perosi here. You've met him before. Vincent joined us about a couple weeks ago, and of course, the board is aware of Dr. Nancy Gassman, who's on the sustainability side. So the idea is to bring in more horsepower, more staff to push the large infrastructure program that we have on the table.
Yes, that's always been one of our concerns, having the capacity in-house to ride herd on all of this infrastructure work that's being done. Well, welcome very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. So who's going to be taking on your job that you previously held? Are you going to be
I'm
appointed?
currently doing both.
God bless you. Okay.
What do you do for fun?
I don't do anything for fun.
Master's degrees.
Goes to school.
Yeah. Goes to school.
Correct.
All right, thank you. It's welcome in
Jackie
your new
texted
position.
and said that she's got.
Okay, thank you very much for the info. All right, so then let's have a general discussion and comments by committee members. I may take the lead on this. I have had conversations with the city manager regarding the workshop that we requested with the city commission in September. He is looking at September 11, I believe, to do a joint workshop. We can't do it at a conference meeting informally because of sunshine laws, there's more of us, and so it has to be a formally noticed workshop, which I said, fine, let's do a formally noticed workshop. So the date he's looking at is September 11th, hoping that he can get that, together. Yes, sir.
So I cannot do September the 11th. I'm on another continent hopefully from 6th of September through 15th or 16th of October. But,
That is
it's just
regrettable.
Too bad.
That is regrettable, but we have very little control over this. This is more commission's agenda than our agenda, so we'll,
So just sorry, can you, so it would be like preamble to the conference meeting,
no, it will be a formal joint work,
especially noticed.
specially noticed
And
joint work.
September the 11th is what?
I believe it's a Tuesday. Can you check on that for me, Pat? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's the 13th. I don't know. I could be wrong. When's this first meeting? First meeting, commission meeting in September.
What's the first?
Will be the first.
It was a different day.
September 11th is.
Well, that's so. I'm sorry. Mistake. What's the first commission meeting in September? Who was early September?
Commission meeting.
Here in September 2nd.
September. It's a Thursday. That's unusual.
No, it's not. September 9th.
9.
Yeah.
September 9th. Okay. Sorry, guys. September 9th.
So September the 9th?
Yeah. Does that make any difference?
No. But maybe I can explore with the city clerk, whether I can call in.
Well, I don't know about that, and that's an issue that's beyond us. The fact that now the meetings have to be in person, and they're not having hybrid where you can call in as well as be here in person, which is very, very unfortunate. But that's the situation as I understand it now, that if you're not physically there, you can't participate.
I have seen, pre-pandemic, I have seen the commission, particularly conference meetings, where they have had people on the speaker.
Conference meeting is not an official meeting. That's a get together. But when you hold an official meeting on Florida statutes, commission meetings, committee meetings, yada, yada, those kinds of, planning zoning board, those kinds of meetings, the governor has stated that everybody has to go back to in person.
Oh.
And from my understanding, I wish the clerk was still here, he came by to check on everybody. We can't do a hybrid version. You're either here or you're not. Very
Well,
unfortunate.
that's a state, not a
State,
city
state.
policy.
The state has said that all of those official meetings have to go back.
Okay.
There's no more emergency order that says you can do it virtually. So, all right, but that's the deal, and it might not be the 9th. I mean, he's trying for the 9th. What's the next one? It could in fact be the next one, but he's working to get us on the agenda in a workshop in September, which is really terrific because when you think about it, our mandate only goes to February 2022. You know, we're August, September, October, November, December, January, February. We only got 7 months left on our mission. So it's really, really important for us to do two things at this meeting. One is to explain to them how we came to our decision about the moratorium and why we think condition is the key thing here, not capacity, capacity is important, but condition is also important. And two, let's talk to them about what do they see us doing in this last 7 months? And do they see a purpose for us going beyond that? Because, you know, when you set up a task force, you have a problem that you need solved, okay? And you get a group of people together and they solve this problem. Tell us how to solve this or recommend how we solve this problem. And, you know, I think we can safely say that in the last couple of meetings, barring the decision we made on the moratorium, we've not been addressing problems that needed to be solved. We've been sort of monitoring the progress on solving problems. We've been monitoring the sewer breaks. We've been monitoring water breaks. We've been monitoring how they're working out the consent order. When you look at the agenda today, a lot of it is reporting on progress that's being made. So I'm not sure that, you know, and this is a great conversation for us to be having probably right now before we go and talk to them. What do we see value added that we bring to this whole situation, and what do we see as what we think we would recommend to them going forward should be the focus of this committee, a similar committee, a different committee with greater powers? Do you guys open to the table? Do you all see this as a need for this committee going past February 22, given the mission that they gave us? Okay, mission that they gave us, the charge that they made for us. Do you think that there's more that we can add to the process, the city in our meeting and going over what we do in this committee? So I know you may not have thought about this, but I thought about it a little bit before I came to this meeting because I had to draft up an outline for what we would say at the committee meeting. So I spent some time thinking about this, you know. And so I just wanted to put it on the table. Maybe if you don't want to opine upon it today, you might want to start thinking. I bet you some of you have already thought about this. Where are we going from here? You know, what do we want to be when we grow up past February? So if anybody wants to contribute to that open, free discussion, now would be a good time to do it. Any thoughts? Yeah.
I mean, we initially, when we formed in early 2017, we had sort of a, for lack of a better word, a mission statement where we had the various categories of infrastructure our involvement in saying, and we might want to, you know, dig that up and see if how much we've met and how much we have outstanding. I think bridges might be one that we have not included in our discussions and analysis, and there may be some others, but that might be a starting place.
I remember that piece of work that you did. It was a listing of all the infrastructure categories, and have we touched on all of those categories?
In addition, I was really referring to the, I think it was prepared by Mayor Seiler, that commission at that time, where we had, I'm looking for it right now as we speak, but they had basically addressed our responsibilities and the categories. Just wanted to make sure that we had met all that, unless this mayor and commission decide that we don't need to go for bridges. of that nature.
Well, if you look at our mission statement, it lists a number of categories of infrastructure. But then there's a sort of a catch-all category. It says not limited, included but not limited to. So one could take the position that it's everything. But in the beginning, when we had the first committee, we all agreed that we were not going to do airports because airports have a separate funding. They were awash in money, and we had the chairperson of the airport committee right there, and he said, "Look, we don't need any help. We're really regulated by the FAA, and we're sort of like on a different thing." So we took airports out. So we have made discretionary decisions about what we will and will not do. But I think you're right about bridges. I mean, you can't say that we have not exhaustively explored sewers. I don't care what anybody says. Sewers, gravity, force main, everything. We're getting pretty good on water. We're pretty good on stormwater. Nancy has been here. She's told us about all the stormwater plans. Reasonable people can disagree on whether we're going fast enough or not fast enough, but they certainly have a handle on some of these problems. And you're right, bridges we haven't touched on. That doesn't mean that there isn't a bridge master plan. There is a bridge master plan. We looked at it, I don't know how many months ago, and they're starting to implement pieces of that master plan. The Ocean View Bridge, for example, which was in the capital budget in the CIP, which they've now transferred over to surtax funding. And we even opined on that to the commission, saying that when you do that, you may remember this communication, that when you switch the funding from capital to surtax, what happens to that money? And we've never gotten a good answer to that. Nobody's ever really focused on that. What happened to that $40 million? It was in the CIP. Where did it go? I'm sure nobody went to the Bahamas with the $40 million, but I'd like to know, did it go into the general fund? Did it stay in the capital budget? Did it get used for other transportation projects? Did it get used for sewer projects? We don't know. I still would like to know. Yeah, but you're right. There are certain things.
I resurrected the resolution number 17-46. And that, and in the purpose and duties on the first page, I can just read this quickly, of the task force shall be as follows. To review existing city infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, sidewalks, airports, seawalls, water and wastewater distribution and collection systems, treatment plants, well fields, parks, and all city facilities and structures, and examine their current condition. And then it goes on, since we're reading everything, so maybe the bridges slipped out of there.
No, well, bridges was, it's other things. Right, so yeah.
I was just agreeing. I mean, I don't think we've really touched on any of the right of way.
Any of the transportation.
Yeah,
We started a couple of meetings ago. I think we had a presentation on the surtax projects. And reasonable people again could disagree whether that covers the universe, because what you can use the surtax funds for is very limited. It's only certain things that you can use the surtax for, and yeah.
Well, I feel there's a continuing role for at least monitoring condition and expenditure on infrastructure. We have, for example, during the tenure of this group and some 3 years or more into the existence of an ITF, we had an incident with the major water line out by the well field that has now resulted in another consent order,
Which is on the agenda.
which is on the agenda. So I feel that it is such a complex subject. The infrastructure is old and aging, and if nothing else, I feel there's a continuing role, if only for us to turn up for an hour once a month to be given review reports on condition and expenditure on infrastructure.
So you think as a monitoring function?
As at least,
As at
so we
least a
look at that,
monitoring
if
function.
somebody looks at it every month, particularly the elements that now comprise the various consent orders, but also using our knowledge that we now have of the condition of various pieces of infrastructure. We could be inquiring, well, it says in the Hazen Sawyer length, high risk, what's the status of this? When's it going to be done? So that's at least, I see a continuing need and role for that. Because when no problems are occurring, people are going to forget about this until it is a sudden problem.
Gerald?
I would add to what Peter said, that in addition to monitoring of the funding and conditions, the logic behind what it is they're trying to do. And of some of the topics that have come up recently, we wrote a letter about what's going on with the high rises because we're having the Surfside. That's going to create something. We don't all know what yet. It's going to create something. They never determine the cause, what happened. It's going to have ramifications in the infrastructure. We'll have to figure out a way to get across the river and touch that. So yeah, I see an ongoing need for a separate set of eyes and ears that are represented around this table, not just to avoid groupthink, but to provide that input to the commission. If they value that input, then yeah, we should stick around.
Well, we should ask them if they would value that function.
That-
Charlie, what do you think?
That would be my question. The city has a bureaucracy, commission. The other commission members have felt the other commission and the bureaucracy didn't focus on this enough for years. So it's really the commission's question whether they, a group of citizens, they ask the questions every month of the bureaucracy of how it's going. Obviously, there have been huge steps taken over the last 3 or 4 years. You guys have been running miles an hour. For these meetings have been, while useful in the PIA, but been helpful to get the word out as happening. Really, the commission's question is, do they want a group to be there to have a comfort level with the ongoing stuff that's still happening, not an emergency, with the water plant, the smaller sewer and water, massive 48-inch. Is it done yet? By the way,
Actually, there is sewage going through the whole.
why didn't you guys go to the paper? You should have got the same publicist as Raj had. On the front page.
Actually, we're having a
Sorry, I've never been known for being diplomatic.
We're having a ceremony.
True.
When is the ceremony? Yes.
It's what day did we do?
So strategic communication is arranged I think for all commissioners here. So we're shooting for August 19th, but it might need to be moved. So we'll keep you posted. I did mention to them that we should have the IKF.
Can you go to public information? I mean, for all the dragging through mud.
It'll be public, strategic communication.
Yes.
It'll be something put out.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think the only reason is they tried to figure out the schedule or the commissioners might be available on the same time, the same day, once that's anchored down. Something post DragCon.
Should have marching bands and balloons.
No,
I mean, we should make a big
It's
deal
a
out of it.
story
We
that
should
should be
all go.
told. You guys,
Guys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We were gonna
I
do
wanna
it
be
right
there.
away, but the commission was recessed, so
Oh, yeah.
we agreed that we're gonna do it.
that's, you guys should all get a pat on the back.
Yeah,
It's not an easy thing to take.
And you guys back there, would you please introduce yourself, your members of the staff? These are the guys who work. You want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Prashant Kandial, project manager for Public Works. I was the project manager for both the North and South.
Out there on the street all the time.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you are, sir?
Igor Vasilyev, Public Works Engineering. We're part of the group, planning and capacity analysis group that worked at TSD.
Oh, yes, you're the spreadsheet guy.
Well, that too.
That too, okay.
But this to me is a commission of the commission, a question of the
Yes,
commission.
it's a
You want
question of the
group out there to monitor, or are not, because there's gonna be, you know, it may not be a crisis du jour, but there's a lot more work to be done and a lot more money to be spent. And it's not gonna stop. There's other areas that I think the commission needs to decide if they want a group or if they're gonna have other. The Third Avenue and Andrews, one-way pairs is
Very
about to
much.
die.
Oh, no.
It's not, it doesn't. You're building highways right through the middle of your town. But
One-way pair?
the word I'm hearing is it's not gonna.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you do with the right of way. I mean, if you leave it four lanes one way.
There's opportunities to do other things with that. There's gonna need to be development. There's always projects like that, the tunnels, the tunnel to the beach.
We're gonna say the tunnel
Do
to
they need
nowhere,
a
right?
group of citizens there? Are they gonna make another committee to deal with it? That should definitely have some people other than just the commission involved in that.
Okay, so there's monitoring of the ongoing plans, and there's also
Other major projects.
other
that
major
are coming.
projects that might need a
Let's see.
look-see.
The Las Olas streetscape, I think there's both Commissioner Glassman and Commissioner Sorensen would tell you, it's got to be a little unwieldy with 40 or 50 people meeting. That maybe there's a different approach to 30 Avenue and Andrews. Something needs to be done with those streets. It may not be one-way pairs, it may be widening sidewalks. And, you know, reconfiguring those streets to make them more efficient, and better for the pedestrians, people that use those streets. But there are other items like that. I'm sure we can come up with a list that, while not looking for work, it's a question of the commission.
Do you want us?
Things that are in the future that do you want a committee to do that? Do you want this committee to do that? Or, you know, how do you want to handle it? But those are big things for the city that need to be dealt with. You know, I would probably differ on storm. I think everybody's still focused on sanitary and dealing with the crisis that we kinds of areas that you know, you drive around after a rain, and there's many areas of the city where they relied on new development to handle storm, that we have patchworks now where there isn't it. That are, and you've got cleanup from all the sewer, where I know in the park, a bunch of areas where after all the repaving it became very evident, like right by that 7-Eleven at Forest, big issue. You know, storm stuff will become more important now that sewer gets off the front.
That and finish the tax. A lot of good ideas. Got 75% done and off to something else. 2 months have gone by, they still haven't paved Victoria Park. Thank God. Didn't paint the lines on the road.
That's just time.
That's 2 months since the last time I brought it up. 2 months.
That's true.
You can make rabbits.
I've been optimist. I look at the fact that the whole system got replaced. And I'm kind of
What
happy.
was the other one? Oh, we didn't have anything to do with this that I remember in the conversation. Maybe you all did before I got here. But the green bike paths are starting to surface as an issue
Mm-hmm. Water trail. A whole water trail.
with the bikers and with the cars.
Okay.
It's not cooked yet.
They just seem to show up.
It's nowhere near.
But for me, it's the bicycles have to oblige traffic control devices.
That's what I mean.
That's a big deal. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm getting the sense that we're
We got more than enough stuff to work on. Just whether or not they want us to
yeah,
look at it.
that's
Right.
exactly correct. I
Exactly.
think Charlie hit it on the nose. You know, that I think we can say that we have examined systems. Probably not as in depth as some people might have wanted to, but I think enough for us to say that I think they have a handle on systems. You know, they
Well,
have
some.
enough money.
The sewer system, I think we got.
Yeah, I
water
think they have a
system.
handle on it, and you know, there's bond money, there's fees, there's no more ROI, so, you know, reasonable professionals can get that act together. You don't need us anymore other than monitoring, if we would, you know, just to help them to, yeah, so let me ask you,
So, Madam
Marty.
Chair, since it was brought up, a couple updates on the stormwater. We just bid 2 projects. One of them is the Edgewood, that was opened last week. And River Oaks will be going to the commission, I believe, on August 18th.
Mhm.
So those are projects that will start construction immediately after award. Also, we have taken a little bit of money that was left on the table from River Oaks, mobilized it to DERS and Dorothy River Band to do the permitting to get them ready to be bid. On the parallel path, finance and budget folks are talking about getting the $200 million bond early first quarter of next year. That will allow us to reimburse the $70 million line of credit we got and have $120 million to execute the next coming up projects on the 7 neighborhood and the stormwater program.
So that first $200 million tranche
Yeah,
is
that's
coming
it.
up relatively shortly, and
Yes.
that was very creative financing
Yeah,
on everybody's
and
part to get
there's a
it started.
validation process, Madam Chair, that we have to go through like.
True enough, yeah.
Okay, I
Well,
would like-
before we go on to that, can I just finish this conversation with Sean and with Michael? What are your thoughts, guys?
I completely agree with what you said, and I don't know how we necessarily stipulate what our task should be going forward.
Well,
Commission's
we never
been
stipulate what our task should be.
Right.
We simply bring up, we've done this. What else do you want us to do? We have some suggestions. So I think it's appropriate for us to put some suggestions on
Sure.
the table. But Charlie was right on. It's up to them. And, it would really actually mean, I think, them changing our mission. So that's a big deal. That's an ordinance. And so this is a good time to have that conversation, because by the time they get their act together, it'll be February. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add, other than there may be like some in the charter and mission objectives we were given, there may be some that were specifically enumerated, like wrestling with the moratorium issue, something that, I think we have addressed head on. But like you said, there were other things that were more generally stated. There are lots of infrastructure systems we haven't looked at much at all. And so, I agree with Charlie. I mean, it's like everybody else. I do think there's more to be done. I do think that the more to be done is part of what's at least generally described in our charge. But if the commission has more specific next projects to look at, then obviously it's their prerogative to identify those and to let us know. But to your initial question is do we have anything left to do? I think we do.
Okay, well, that's why I wanted to put it on the table and get the sense of the group. I mean, it's your time. It's it's your 3 or 4 hours away from work or family, and you have to be invested in continuing it. And if you don't think it's necessary, no one's going to show up. So yes, Peter.
Well, I just wanted to make the point that what Abby talked about with the stormwater project sort of makes the point for the existence of ITF, because I think it's before a lot of the members currently here on the ITF, but we found that there were, I think it was 6 stormwater projects fully designed in a drawer, but not funded. And I believe that we've been pushed for those to be funded, and lo and behold, funds, etc., and the rest is history. So, there's a solid achievement, I believe, that we contributed to.
keeping the focus
and the pressure. Yes, sir.
That's where I was going to hit on too with the storm drains, because I kind of accidentally found out that the storm drainage systems were not the exfiltration type of have most, where the stormwater drainage is exfiltrated down into the ground and percolates down. I found out one of your folks that it's basically a holding tank. So I think I've been designing that, and I've never known the regulatory agency to accept a holding tank because of the fact that its water stagnates, perfect mosquito breeding grounds. And I thought that there were slotted pipe coming out of the structures that would have the gravel and the fabric around there so that it would exfiltrate down, percolate down into the groundwater. I found out that was not part of on the as-built. And so my concern obviously is we need to make sure that the city standard design includes that for the exfiltration pipe.
So the response to that, as you know, the city is an older city and it has a system that is older and upgraded and all that. Somewhere early in 2012, so we start adopting exfiltration trench as a concept. And the stormwater master plan that's designed by Hazen and Sawyer is looking at all the tools in the toolbox to provide solution that include drainage wells, that include exfiltration trench, that include pump station wells in some area. So they will be looking at all the available new tools, including exfiltration trench in their design. Now, is there some portion of the city that has the old conventional depression with the grass in it? Yes. But moving forward, and since that time, and including some of the projects, the operational group, we're adopting that methodology along with other systems to better drain. For example, Riverland up there, we did that project where we did the drainage area on the curve, and that trench that was implemented in 16, 17. So we're doing them, but again, it's all about how much is available money to refurbish how many of those wells per se, and some of it may have been done under the operational budget, but now with the master plan that has a lot of its own funding, those will be one of the solutions that Hazen will have in bigger program.
Thank you.
So they will actually, when they do the analysis of the system, they will know where those older portions of the system are. And will that be a priority to change them?
Madam Chair, we're going at it neighborhood by neighborhood, the
Okay.
7 neighborhood. As you know, the stormwater is a multi-phase program. The first phase was some operational project and smaller CIP projects. We're in phase 2 that include the 7 neighborhood, and then moving forward as we identify more funding, we'll be doing more neighborhood. The one that are on the table, the 7 neighborhood, they're all designed for say Hazen, and then we're trying to walk them through funding it becomes available.
Okay.
So those are moving.
Well, so like I say, system-wise, I think that, especially the big systems, we have plans and we're moving on them and there is money. But when we started, there was no plan and there was no money. So, but now things have changed significantly.
Yeah, I mean, we just went through the stormwater fees, when we have done the study that allow us to go a little bit more in fee to generate a little bit more revenue in order to get a bond. So like any other utility enterprise fund type of thing, you need to have enough revenue generated to substantiate a bond or a loan or so. And that was done when Stantec went through the revised methodology, and you recall we went from the $8 per residence to 12, and these are large programs that have large expenses, and they have to have some rate structure that support them in some fashion.
In that respect, can I ask you, do you know what the update is on, I believe when they changed the system, the methodology, we went immediately to court to test it. So to get ahead of the potential lawsuits, we asked for some kind of judgment.
There is a validation through the court process, and I think this is going to be done in this period when we're going to the bond council and all that. Want to require that as part of to show the benefit for the entire city. And
but that has been begun. Has it been finished?
I'll have to consult with the finance book to see where that process is. But the preliminary schedule that I got is Q1 of 2022 is when we're going.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So on question on the storm, I know there's a hierarchy of stuff to do for task. I'm assuming that right now the top areas don't have storm capacity. Are you guys looking at systems that are shown to be efficient? So what comes to mind is the what we had last fall, where
Correct.
the ones that
Melrose and
well, I was even thinking of Victoria Park, where you had the outfall to the intercoastal water table got so high where you didn't have outfall.
so I think as a result of the storm Etta and the rain that we had in September, October, November of last year, it became apparent that one of the Melrose neighborhood actually is an area that needs an immediate attention. We're trying to slide it in the program. Clearly, that hasn't been, it was not included in the original civil neighborhood, and we're trying to slide it in. We're anticipating or estimating a 5-year timeline when we get it actually constructed. We have to look for the funding for that.
Do you anticipate a time frame when we would start retention and injection wells? And that's like so low on the list, it's gonna wait 20 years.
Just to add that, we just finished the River Oaks Reserve. That's a holding area. We're gonna have another ceremony for that we're planning. That was a big project. That was just completed a few weeks ago.
It's a
It's
a pond.
It's a pond.
It's a pond.
It's a pond, yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Mr. Ladd, the way we're looking at it, we got the 7th, and we're trying to look at the next batch neighborhood that to slide them into the priority list, and clearly, like everything else, that's going to be subject to finances funding. The program is foreseen as a large program that will keep on moving with consistent funding to go to the next.
So they actually changing the outfall on the ones that function.
It would be part of the design as to what solution. For instance, in my understanding that not all the area are feasible to do a drainage well, because you need to have the slopes and so
You have
forth.
to have the saltwater.
And
Basically 95.
yes, and then when you look at some of these aisles that are closer to the water, it becomes a lot more complicated because, as you mentioned, you get the outflow, and when you get the tide comes in and goes up to the street, and that's related, to sea level rise and all that. We're experiencing that into this, the design and of our pump station, and I can't change the topography of the city. We have a canal system. This is was built in the early 1900s, and unfortunately, with the rising seas, typically, if you look at all the municipalities who are attacking this coastal municipality that are attacking the stormwater problem between the city of Miami Beach, and us, and going up the road, there's been a lot of kind of out of the box type of solution. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, so it just.
Some of them are unrealistic.
Yeah, some of them are unrealistic,
We're not
but
gonna raise any street for
I think it was learned. It was learned in the old days of the Egyptian and as well as the Dutch countries. Once water comes in, it's hard to deal with it. You just need to stop water from coming in, and that means stopping the ocean from coming in, but that's a huge task. Miami Beach raised streets, and some of the stores become, from insurance perspective, an address with a basement, and that jacked up their insurance rates up the moon.
Yeah.
And of course, they were discharging into the bay, which is another issue with DEP. So it's a large type of thing that needs a big thinking solution in terms of getting what it is. And consultant have to look at each situation, one neighborhood at a time, one area at a time. What is the best tool or design tool that could be utilized to mitigate? We all seen the king tide when they come in, and we got Cordova flooded. We got most of the islands almost flooded. So the seawall down there helped a lot. Those two seawall helped a lot, but ultimately We'll have to armor the entire city with seawall if you wanna stop water from coming in. And that's the rules of that.
I found it fascinating that tides got high enough in the system that you didn't have to take place the pumps. That was fast. Well, I don't know if that ever happened. That was one time.
I mean, the observation that we had from Storm Etta, especially in the western part of Broward County that received a humongous amount of water, it just, the drainage district folks and the South Florida Waterman District, they were just allowing municipality to connect to the canal system one at a time. It was like there's a backup. You know, you gotta wait until somebody comes in because the system capacity is got filled and water has nowhere to go.
I think here it was kind of at the tide.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't drain it. Tide.
Yep.
Thank God.
You know, these are bigger issues than the current system issues.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe one of the roles that the commission, we could recommend to the commission is to look at some of these bigger issues, sustainability issues. I don't know how interested anybody is in those things, but it might be worthwhile to put on the table that you have a group here that's seeped in infrastructure and might be the appropriate place to be a forum for some of these other ideas, these new methodologies, you know, just to sort of bounce those ideas around. Just something else to put on the table as a possibility. I mean, I see value added in that we could.
Well, the fascinating thing is that if you believe these guys really changed things. Start at the beginning about a moratorium. Why are we building more places in low spots?
Didn't we just go through that, Charlie?
Well, it's a valid question.
Yes, it's a very valid question.
And so then you say, well, if that's the case, then maybe those places are building in those places. Maybe they should build more drainage. That's it. I mean, that's never been really approached before, but it kind of happens anyway. Speed improvements, new projects. Maybe those take the opportunity there where you can build that capacity. It can take some of this through the injection process. I mean, when 7th Avenue was flooded, all our shopping centers were dry as a bone. And we could have taken all that water easily in shopping centers and dealt with it. Maybe there are things that can be done that nobody will thought of.
Are you talking about using the parking lots in shopping centers as collection areas for excess stormwater?
Maybe less pavement?
Well, certainly less paving. Goodness
When
gracious.
a project is built, the developers many times put in the drainage along the streets. Storm drainage. It's built. You go through Flagler, most of what's been built there has been built by these shopping centers, when they're built, because they have parking areas, they have exfiltration, extensive, especially if you use Flynn, about double you need.
Mhm.
And then you have extensive deep injection that are designed. I think you guys designed a 95% of the 100 year in terms of capacity.
So site by site.
But those newer properties have capacity to take a lot of water that could come off the city streets in an emergency. I know it's backwards than what everybody's ever thought about.
That's a marvelous and fascinating
Until they
subject.
get clogged.
Well, they don't get clogged, they're deep injection.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you got a pipe that's this big that goes 125 feet down.
So you collect the water and then you pump it down on the injection well, right?
That goes through its filtration.
Gravity?
It takes the first 2 inches and then it goes through a weir and goes into a deep injection. Those are recertified
Do they
every
let you?
number of years in terms of being clean.
Oh, I was gonna
The
say.
county's gotten much more aggressive on that certification.
I had sent a map showing where they had injection throughout the county here. So it's being done.
Every project that we've done west, east of 95, 10, 15 years, in a deep injection.
Almost every project that's done these days, just because the buildings
Lands
take up too much of the
land.
the land, yeah.
Lands to evaluate.
Well, you know, that's a fascinating
There's all kinds of
subject. There's a
things that have not
possibilities.
been explored that if you're trying to get realistic about solving the problem, you know, and the first answer is stop building buildings. And that's not gonna happen. So now you start to say, how do you get creative? And there are things that can be done, that, you know, let's say the Galleria, they're gonna have a massive new storm system. Okay, take a load for the city, we'll pay you, we'll waive it, all kinds of things that will allow this to be more aggressively addressed.
Wow, I love it.
So,
To that point, the main issue is that the streets are so low, and for the gravity injection wells to work, you have to maintain a certain head pressure. You have to be 2 feet above the water table in order to actually gravity inject. So it's, in a lot of cases, the well is located further on site because the actual site is built up, especially now with the FEMA regulations.
Right.
But then the street is still down low because you can't raise the entire street. It
well,
snowballs.
you could design for it with piping or pumps, and
Pumps, you'd have to have pumps to get it to bridge
to
the
take some of the capacity, basically, from the lift station
right.
into the private system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's just on an emergency basis where you look on that.
Yeah, you look at it, like I said, I think about the fall with Victoria Park. There was a lot of water. That could have gotten rid of it.
Well, we brought that up, I think you brought it up, no, maybe it was you who brought it up in the Cordova was Fred, the Cordova Road seawall. Now that it's higher than the canal, all that rain is gonna pile up
Now you got
on the other side of the sea, and they were not pumping it out, they were just letting it drain.
That's the finger in the dike. Doing that.
So, you know, that issue has come up in this committee before, but we never really explored it, and I think that's a fascinating idea of introducing, in addition to the systems, the stormwater systems and the plans that they have for the stormwater systems, to be more creative and think of other ways of dealing with the excess stormwater. So that's very interesting.
Is there
Yes.
a sustainability advisory committee?
Yes, there
or-
is.
So we kind of, you know,
The storm starts to intersect.
Yeah. But, you know, I know the people on sustainability. I've been to several of their meetings. That is way nowhere near. They're not into that.
They're in the lead.
They're into leaves and greens and things like that, but maybe they could be, maybe. But,
but
okay,
this would be far more appropriate.
I would think so, given the stormwater focus that we've had over these years. Okay, so this was a very good discussion. I'm glad we had it. So, you know, it sort of focuses our mind to think about what we're going to do in September, but we're going to talk about that extensively at the last item on the agenda. So can we move on to the agenda? Do we have, wait a second. Yes, you don't want to
Well,
move
we're
on?
still on
General discussion.
general discussion.
Yes, sir. You have some more?
So I need to bring this up, I think,
Certainly.
under this agenda item. So we're probably all aware that since we last met, the previous Public Works Director, Raj, resigned. Now, I have a lot of sympathy for staff, you know, during the pandemic and currently. They're working under extraordinarily difficult circumstances and unprecedented challenges that have not existed almost ever before. Having said that, I found his resignation letter somewhat disquieting. And it's kind of, and after all, when you look at it, under Raj, things have greatly improved. And you just listen to him, you always respected what he said. And when he leaves, he has a number of points that he made. Now, we can't, I think, get involved in the organisation and the day-to-day running of public works. But I am disquieted by some of the things he said. So I have in my mind, you know, the major points that worry me, but I wanted to put it out there that maybe we should ask a representative of the city manager's office, if not the city manager, to talk to us about why maybe not, we should not take as seriously as I am the things that Raj said in his letter. That.
Can I comment on that?
Certainly.
Personally, after reading that letter, I put zero stock in anything that I said. Anybody that would write a letter like that, I have zero respect. And I think this is a kind of issue that's a commission issue. And if they're concerned with this, it should be handled under their procedures. In private rather than. That's my personal opinion. But after, when I read that letter, the fact that the letter was sent to me and then showed up in the paper, I just find that just reprehensible. It's just most classless move. So, to me, that's a commission item that they should have a private with the city manager or not. There's an inherent problem that he cited. Really not our place.
So because of the fact of the way that he handled it and released it, you're prepared to discount everything he said?
I'm exaggerating, Peter, obviously. Come on, that was a classless move to do that. And it was the most self-aggrandizing thing that made me want to. That's my answer. You know, if he had real issues, I don't see them there. Okay? And to write that and trash everybody around him was a lousy thing to do, and I don't think it's a position. And
I agree with
we're
that.
acting in a public setting here that the commissioner and the city manager have the ability to do it. If there are inherent problems in that department or with how the city manager, it really was his bitch was with the city manager. I don't think that's the place that we have.
I think this is the committee for discussing personnel.
I agree. I have to agree. I mean, I was disquieted by some of the issues he raised, but you know that I've been in the bureaucracy myself. I've been in the trenches in the bureaucracy. These are normal kinds of tensions that one department has with another department, and you don't air your dirty laundry.
These manifested themselves as extreme tensions to me. And he makes the point that when he came and took on the job, he was already told that the Public Works Department was dysfunctional and to sort it out. And I feel that the ability of the Public Works Department to perform is directly related to the quality delivery of infrastructure. And I recognize that we can't get into such and such a person should be here and such and such a person should be there. But I feel there's maybe some big picture issues that.
Well, Ralph, Peter, for an organization that has the type of issues and problems that he espoused in his letter, they seem to be pumping out a hell of a lot of work. And, you know, doing a lot of work and getting a lot of projects done. So I think that these are sort of like the normal, you know, issues that go on in bureaucracies.
And when it was all said and done, it was an attack on the city manager. And it's not our place to get into the relationship of the city manager with his personnel or with the city manager and his relationship with the commission. And I think the better thing is to privately talk to the mayor and the commissioners and say, if you're concerned about this, are you guys looking into this and making sure that those allegations are baseless or not baseless? But like I said, the credibility, when you run to the paper, when your organization is killing itself to regain credibility for citizens of the city, you run a trash job. That was a horrible thing. It was a lousy thing to do on your way out. It was just like walking out like this. That was lousy.
And I agree with that. But the only thing I'll say, having been on this infrastructure task force for 3 years, I still have almost no understanding of who is responsible for what within the public works, what title, what their responsibilities are, what they're not.
So then I would think that under the circumstances, since we have a new interim director and many new hires, many new people since, you know, when we first started, we did have a diagram of the entire public works structure. Who was doing what? You know, remember that? I think we should have that again prepared. I'm sure you have it. and provide it at the next meeting. So we can see who's in charge of which department and how the workflow goes and who's responsible.
You guys mind doing that?
We're in the process of having an internal discussion and trying to figure out some kind of board, given the fact of what's been alleged in the newspaper and all that. Unfortunately, right now in the immediate term, the goal and the effort is about stabilizing what has been destabilized, but certainly at some stage in the future, it will be a clear org chart with the clear assignments as to who's doing what. That's one of the reasons why Ben was hired, and that's why we're looking at the totality of the organization.
Do you suppose that by September that we might have a better handle on the organization of the department?
I may not have an official final org chart.
Yeah.
It'll be something that we'll be working on. I don't know. We got August to kind of work with all of these issues. We may or may not have an official org chart.
Okay, but let's put it on the table as an agenda
Certainly,
item. As soon as you have it,
I
we
have
would like
made
to
a
see it.
note of the request.
Thank you very much. Yes.
But let me just give you, one example of the sort of thing that confuses me. Until recently, and maybe currently, we had, I believe, dual chief engineers, of which Omar was one. And then we have a city engineer, who I believe is based over, I think that's the title, who I believe is in the Department of Sustainability, physically in the Department of Sustainable Development. And I don't understand the pecking order there, who reports to who, to the extent that there's any overlap of their responsibilities. It's just very confusing for the public, let alone me.
Okay.
So if I may offer a little bit of background, and this is just from historical, the city as an organization decided to move from a classical engineering works into a project management. And that occurred somewhere after the waterworks program, somewhere in the 2013, 2014. Also, the city underwent a classification and compensation study shortly thereafter in 2017, where some of these title positions have changed. So, for example, chief engineer didn't exist prior to the classic comp. Classically, when Peter was here, it was a city engineer and an assistant city engineer. After those two changes, I believe currently, and I could be mistaken, we have a city engineer position that lies in DSD. And in public works, we have two chief positions, Omar being one of them and Jill being the person as chief engineer. So we're working with both of those, the switch into the program, project management organization, as well as the class and comp to kind of configure as to where we're going. Certainly, there has been a lot of transition in public work since 2012 and 13, when waterworks existed, a quasi separate organization was put on the side. I think Peter knows that, to execute the program. And then after that got finished in 2011, 2012, city folks reverted back to the public works department, and they were doing their regular project engineering type of duties. So, I mean, again, and there has been a lot of personnel changes just from the table on this board by itself. You've gone maybe about through 4 or 5 people sitting in my chair. So with a lot of these transition, yes, some of it can be can lead to a confusion in terms of what's going on in general in the department. But we have a dedicated group that does. I mean, the way the org was up till a few months ago. We had three division. We had four. We have utilities, which is where I was stationed. We have engineering, which is in City Hall, and we have sustainability and strategic support to provide the finances and the accounting and so forth. So utility type of business and utility operation was always kind of separate because it's unique type of things and it's more on the operation. I've always said, in my role, I run three companies. I have a construction company, which is a distribution and collection system, and the pump station, that's the linear system. I have the industrial company, that is the plant, the water plant and the sewer plant, and we have a customer service center, which is more of a call center. Now, in engineering here, the role that we're defined is for engineering no longer exists. Project management organization, the role of the project management organization is to execute the city CIP.
I think that you're actually making my point. And as the last thing, I'll just also mention that we have a large body of consultants that are embedded with staff as well. But, where you went was where I see no need for the ITF to go. I just wanted to make the general point, and I think you've got it.
Point well taken.
Right, and I think we have a follow-up on that as this is solidified and clarified and put into the program, into the workflow chart. What do you call those charts where you have the staff? Staff, the charts where you have the staff. Organization, so thank you very much. Where you have an organization. You're working on it, and when you have it, would you share it with us? We appreciate it.
Certainly will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that, let's get on then to item number 3. Do we have anybody from the public or any requests for comment? No, okay. Old business, report on the tunnel project. And on the tunnel project, I think we meant the proposed tunnel from downtown to the beach. And you saw in your backup material that there is no update on that because it's one of these unsolicited proposals where there is no real proposal other than I'm going to build a tunnel to the beach. So,
Well, there are statutory criteria there for the.
the statutory criteria are all met. If you look in your backup material, the resolution to the commission quotes all the sections and the money that was put in, and everything is kosher in terms of meeting all of the requirements, the statutory requirements for the
Really?
yeah, for the unsolicited proposal. But the proposal itself is maybe one page that says, I'm gonna build a tunnel. So that's really a problem with the statute. It's not a problem with the commission's handling of it. That's what the statute says. It says somebody can come in and say, I propose to do thus and such, okay? And they don't have to go into great detail about it at all. I mean, we're handling several of these now in the city. We're doing one on the one-stop shop. We're doing, there's this one. I mean, they just come in and they say, and the water plants. The guy came in and said, I want to build you a water plant.
The stadium.
Yeah, well,
So,
but there are certain, a qualifying project has a definition. So you've got to meet that definition. You just can't say, oh, we'll do anything.
well, Abby, what do you say? I mean, the guy
How
came
does it
in.
work? I can tell you how it works.
Oh,
Well,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm doing one in Boca, so
All
I
right,
mean,
so what, how does it work?
Called a P3,
This is not a P3.
it's specific.
it's using up to P3 statute where you pursue projects, qualifying projects, a project that pursues a public purpose. That's a
Gotta be
public purpose, and there are specifically enumerated projects, mass transit, vehicle parking. I can read them all. None of these were identified in the resolution as the type of project being proposed. Rather, it's just the catch-all at the end. It's a public facility or infrastructure that is used or will be used by the public at large or in support of an accepted public purpose. And so I think that
That's
the solicitation, the unsolicited proposal is exempt from public disclosure. It's not the state law.
Exactly.
It's not my understanding state law prohibits it. It's just exempt from public disclosure under Public Records Act. That can always be waived, I suppose, by the proposer if they wanted to make parts of it public or not during the time of non-disclosure. But I'm not sure if the purpose, like the public purpose that's being pursued, is a secret. Like, what is the public purpose? What is it that the public at large benefits?
But the way it works is you make a proposal to the city. The proposal can be on 1 page of paper, it could be 300 pages.
There you go.
It's up to you as the proposer to make a proposal. The commission then votes to pursue it or not
Right.
pursue it. They vote to pursue it. There's a window for people to make proposals regarding the same general item which you made. So for instance, we proposed a parking garage in the city here in parking lot in El Camino.
Okay.
With a EMS substation.
Oh.
Sent this proposal to the commission has all seen it. They're vetting the proposal now. They accept it, there'll be a window for people to make a proposal on the same basic service. And then they can vote to accept it or not accept it. So process is much simpler process. The commission chooses to make it. But the commission can also just vote not to press it, not.
Right, the commission is under no obligation to accept any of
Correct,
these
so-
proposals, and yet they do.
Well, that's why they have elections.
That's right.
And
Well-
they've had, for instance, the soccer stadium, now there's a bunch of dramas, I understand, because there's certain items that are not being done that they thought were proposed.
The park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a new thing, we'll see how it goes,
Right.
but in the end, it'll come down to the commission, you know, they make a couple bad deals, then they probably won't want to do anymore. If they make some good deals, they may look at doing more.
Well, they appear to be enamored of the whole process. But let me ask you a question, since you have the background in this. When you say you could have a 1-page proposal or a 3-page or a book of describing the proposal, my understanding about this tunnel project, I have not been able to find anything, not even a 1-page. All the material that was in our backup was simply the resolution.
Resolution, yeah.
Right, so has anybody seen the proposal?
Well, but the proposals was exempt from public disclosure. But the resolution is, and I'm just bringing this up to the extent that, you know, if there's something to talk about. I mean, I think you could talk about the resolution, you could talk about the findings that the city makes, that this project will help build a sustainable and resilient pedestrian-friendly community. That was the first finding.
Every project.
And then the second finding was that
You can find a priority in our plan that fits every project.
The strip joint I'm doing is going to
Yeah.
be very
It's going to be sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Let Ralph go on. He's
well, so I just think these are important. I mean, you know, I think that these ought to be more than just words. I think that,
One thing that I was concerned about was the fact that the scope that keeps changing. First, it was going to be an electric train mode. Then it was going to be, eventually got into like personal vehicles to be driving. Now it's a Tesla on a electronic.
Tesla too.
Right, and so that's really refocusing not to take care or reduce the east-west traffic. That's more of a pedestrian type of thing, unless they're gonna have parking lots. But I don't see the advantage for someone to drive their vehicle there, get into the Tesla, go 3 miles, get to the beach, and then come back. Unless you've got transportation mode there, but that's going to make A1A even more congested. So I'm just not warm and fuzzy with how they're going to reduce the east-west traffic through this process. There's something I'm not hearing.
I think the problem is that twofold. One, there is not a really good description of this proposal. Because, you know, you say I'm going to build a tunnel from here to there with a stop in Los Olas. Okay, well, where are you going to get out of the tunnel? What right-of-way are you going to need to get, you know, the stairs and the escalators out of the tunnel? I mean, there's so many engineering aspects to this that are not part of this proposal. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is, who is this serving? Who in downtown, in the high-rise apartment buildings, is going to get their cooler and their children or not even their children, they're cooler in their chair, go downstairs, go to Brightline, get on a train to go to the beach, and then when they get there, they still got their cooler in their chair, and they gotta go find a spot on the beach. Who's gonna do
I
that?
think the theory is somebody in the western suburbs.
I'm gonna drive in from
And stop
Weston
it.
and stop at Brightline and take this?
I'm not debating,
I'm-
I'm talking about the theory.
You know, but these are questions that people are
That they can
asking.
park in a garage, take away from the traffic load to get from downtown to the thing moves, takes 2 minutes, crazy number. And takes trips off of that route down Broward over 15th. That's the theory. And you have the Brightline traffic that in theory can get off the Brightline. Only weakness in that theory is that Brightline's maintains what, a mile or 2 mile distance from the beach from West Palm down to Hollywood. So if you're already on the east side of one of the towns, why would you get on the Brightline to our beach?
You go to your beach.
But the fact of the matter it's our committee. It's not our place to reflect on this unless passed. And I will tell you.
I mean, I think that, honestly, if we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about, I think the right of way is a big component of the municipal infrastructure. Talking about, the theory is that it's gonna impact that right of way. Well, I mean, why can't we talk about how it impacts that right of way?
We can. Personally, I'm not. The mayor and the commissioners are loving the idea.
That's fine, I know, but they could, right. I'm just saying, we don't have to talk about proposal, but I was just interested in hearing, because these are exciting things. It says that this project is going to help ensure equitable development and equitable access to multimodal mobility. I would love to know, because I think that's a really important thing, and how, I'd love to see how these more equitable options for people, or how, this is great, but how does it happen? How is this doing it?
$4 you get the best.
And go under the
Right,
intercom.
but does that solve any existing transit equity issues?
And
And that's
also,
what they say it does, though.
and also,
Who?
That's what it says in the resolution.
Again, it's not my place.
And I'm not asking about, like you were saying, all these details about where this and that house done. That's part of the proposal. I'm not talking about that.
okay.
I'm just talking about what resolution says and the findings in the resolution.
Well, the commission has decided that all of those things are true because they passed the
Okay.
resolution.
Okay.
So do you want to second guess the commission?
No, I would love to know, like what, I'd love to know the like how the theory comes together.
Who's your commissioner?
Oh, I can talk to the commissioner, yeah, but
Where do you live?
well, I know my commissioner is.
Call him up and ask. Call him or her up and ask.
I asked
Why
mine.
can't we discuss that this in this? I mean,
Well,
this is
you
what we're
know-
here, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but it's not our place to do it. It's
But these
Well,
aren't political questions, these are technical questions.
they are said.
They're no different than talking about how, water pressure.
It hasn't been brought to us. Technically, we don't even know what it is.
Well, one could say that under and any other, what was the resolution? And any other thing, not limited to? I mean, one could make the argument that we could discuss it under our current
You're welcome to
mission.
do it, but I'm not discussing it unless they
Okay.
tell me to discuss it, because I'm not
All right.
sticking my nose in something. I don't want it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Peter,
well,
you wanted
listen, I
to
just
join
thought this
us?
was really interesting, I
You
would love to know
wanted
more
join
about
this
it.
conversation?
So I'm all in favour of innovation, and I've been in transportation for 40 years. And 2 years ago, it would never have occurred to me to put Teslas in a tunnel as a way of addressing a transportation need. So I see no reason why, it's not a good idea to proceed. Innovation is good. When it's more fleshed out, I personally would look at it from the point of view of opportunity cost. It's going to cost the city X million. What else could we do with that X million? You evaluate it. That's the way that I would look at it.
Yeah.
And if the objective is to reduce the traffic west corridors, I'm having a hard time seeing how that's going to come about.
Listen, I didn't want to get into a proposal, I just thought, to the extent there could be an update and staff could explain something, explaining the findings they made in the resolution, because to me, these are important objectives that we're trying to pursue, and to understand them, it's something I think would be beneficial.
Well, I had asked for an update on it. It was on the agenda, and what you got was a memo saying, we don't even know what the proposal is either, and we can't give you an update.
Okay, fair enough.
So, you know, at some point, we will know more about this. And I think Charlie is right. You know, it's like these big projects. Well, where we could make the argument that it's within our mission. Do we want to do that, or do we want to specifically get some direction from the commission? I mean, because just think about it, as a politician, wouldn't you like to have another set of eyes on this? Even so that you could say, well, it's not just me, you know, the infrastructure task force looked at this and thought it was a great idea. Or not.
If they want.
Or not, you know, or not.
Only if we thought it was.
Only if we thought it was a great idea. But you're right, they passed that resolution, they said that this project will do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, they said it. So that's what they said. This may not be the forum to question whether they were
Oh,
correct.
I was trying to question them. I thought I was going to explain it. That's all.
They're not about, the staff is not about to explain that particular resolution. Is the staff
only
prepared
question
to
is, do you want
explain the
to-
resolution? I didn't think so, no.
That's the question.
I don't have any additional information or privy to any additional information beyond what's in the resolution, so
There you go,
I can't add anything to it.
that's the
Maybe we
answer.
can put the storm through.
Okay, so let's move on since we're running at 3:20 already, so let's
That's what it
move
means by
on.
multi-modal, right?
We're having a hell of a time.
That's the other
Yeah,
mode.
we were enjoying ourselves, all right? Okay. Update on the water consent order. Okay. You got the copy of the water consent order? Everybody's got it?
And another traffic ticket.
And it requires the city, correct me if I'm wrong, Abby, this came about, can you give us the background, the context,
Yes,
how we got
so
into this?
as the member knows, we had the incidents at the FXE in 2019. And out of that incident, we were subject to the consent order with the DEP regarding finding our water mains and exercising them in some kind of quick fashion. That was one outcome of that incident. So during the early part of 2020, we negotiated the consent order that you have in front of you, and it's got two portions. One portion that is related to the mapping of the raw water lines that come in from Prospect to 5X. That includes mapping all the pipeline as well as the valve and exercising the valve. The larger effort is to map the entire water distribution system and exercising the valve in the distribution system, and that to be done over the 5-year period, which is the kind of industry standard for maintaining a water distribution system. So those are the two chief elements of the water consent order.
Okay, and I understand that the mapping, what is the status of the mapping?
So the first phase, which is mapping of the raw water line and exercising of the raw water valve, is complete. Brandy Layton is the managing the consent order. She could give you an update on both the first requirement and the second requirement. Brandy?
Brandy.
So, for the, I believe that was talking about the valves that we had to exercise and locate. So those valves have all been located. So that portion, the next step was to issue a report to and we will also need to provide maps city system, and that is big.
When you say procured, what do you mean?
So we may need to do a solicitation.
So to date, we have not embarked upon the mapping of the water distribution. That's disappointing.
We're meeting with the city manager this to evaluate use.
Well, okay, so speaking systems, gentlemen, we have a good handle on the sewer system because Hazen and Sawyer was on board and they did all the mapping pursuant to that consent order. But we haven't got any overall view of the water distribution system because we don't have a consultant on board to do that yet. Is that correct?
We do have some maps that the city that aren't fully.
Okay, so we have some mapping done.
Correct.
And you notice from, we've been watching all the water distribution breaks. We have a map, and they update the map on the water distribution breaks, and they give it to us every month. And we do have breaks. But we don't know enough about the system to know whether those breaks are endemic or on old pipes, new pipes, just like we do on the sewers. We know where the breaks are, we know the condition of those pipes, and we have a pretty good, all of us, staff, us, we have a pretty good handle on that. But we don't have that good a handle on the water distribution.
So to that point, Madam Chair, we currently have atlases of the water distribution system. Now, these may not be 100% certain or 100% correct because they have been a compilation over the years of what was prior in hard map and what was added as a as-built project and so forth. So the idea and the objective of the water consent order is the same way as the water sewer consent order, is to hire a consultant who will map the entire water distribution system, get it into a GIS database that matches our newly implemented asset management program. So moving in the next 20 years, we would have a complete system map in a digital platform that we could look at it, do a risk assessment on it, and do all kind of analysis. And we did similarly with the stormwater, where there was some mapping done earlier about mapping the system and creating the GIS. But all of these efforts are in progress. But the city does have a base atlases of the water system, stormwater system, but the level of accuracy as staff has defined over a period of time, you could be at 60 or 70 or 75% or 80% complete, but all of these are in the paper form.
Okay,
But
yes,
somehow
Peter.
I got the impression that water main mapping was ongoing. That's not the case.
See that again?
I got the impression that the water line mapping was actually already ongoing, but you actually have to now award a contract to a consultant.
We were doing it internally as in the way that when somebody turned in an as-built, we would go and update the atlases. But this is it's much more entailing in the sense we're also creating a new database that matches the asset management and so forth.
And when do we have to have that done under the consent?
I believe we have, what's the?
July 24 to 20.
2023. I mean, it could be done, there's no reason it can't be done. I'm just concerned that within the 7 months that we have left here, we are not gonna be in a position to opine on the water system to the extent and to the depth that we've been able to do on the sewer system, because that work has yet to be done. So it's just something to put on the table to think about going forward. Is that, is that significant enough to us to bring it up to the commission as a reason for us to continue work? Yes.
Not only the atlas, but also providing a computerized simulation map so that you can, expect you to go out and do all these fire hydrant flow tests, but you can probably pick different points. You can substantiate certain distribution areas that with a certain flow, the pressures are doing what they're doing, dropping or whatever. And then what we used to use is, once we got all the systems in, made a confirmation around the entire area as closely as we could, we were able to go ahead and look at an incident of a fire during a peak hour, and if the system would be able to handle that computer-wise.
Mr.
Which is
Zuckerman,
a great tool to have. I mean, of course, with the fire departments and everything, and then they certainly have certain areas that they go out and fire protect.
I'm glad you brought up that effort. On a parallel effort to the mapping of the system, we have engaged Hazen and Sawyer to finalize and provide us a water model, water computer model. And in the same deliverable that's coming up in a few months in September, we also requested them to give us a unidirectional flushing. And that program will allow us to get a both computerized way of looking at the system, as well as a procedure to staff, so that when we have an issue in certain area, like the dead end areas along the aisles, that we would have instruction and a standard operating procedure about a sequence of flushing to move the water from these dead ends. So that's a parallel effort that is ongoing. We're supposed to have those deliverable in September of this year.
What was that part of?
Pardon me?
Those deliverables, what would they include, what project were they included in?
Those were included earlier as in relation to the discussion that surfaced earlier about writing capacity letters and the need to have an accurate model about the system and how we develop the capacity letter and so forth. Those task orders were issued last year as an outcome of all of these discussions. As you recall, on the sewer side, Hazen did all of that already.
Right.
But, we didn't have a consent order in 2017 on the water side. So we undertook that effort to do similar things on the water system in order for the folks at DSD to accurately write a capacity letter.
Yes, Peter.
The procuring the mapping consultant, is that under the consultant's?
Yes, it has to abide by the threshold established by Florida Statute 28755, which is the CCNA, which got a threshold of $500,000 for a study and a $4 million in commodity.
So is the RFP out at this point?
Pardon me?
The RFP, is that out?
No, not yet. We're having some high-level discussion.
So I don't have to tell you how long that whole process takes.
It's gonna take time.
For the water distribution.
We're working it as soon as we can. There was some earlier effort that were not along the line of the CCNA threshold. And now we're kind of looking at it again, making sure that whatever we're doing comply with the CCNA threshold.
Okay, but let me ask you something related to that. We had gotten a presentation about how the fire hydrants were all identified. And remember the fire hydrant guy? He
Yes.
came in and he said, now we know where all the fire hydrants are. And now we have a program of testing all the fire hydrants. So that was part of another process, or that was in-house?
That was another program that I put forward earlier in 2016 to make sure precisely what Mr. Zeltman kept putting up and raising the issue regarding fire flow and all that.
You can say that.
I just wanted to make sure that we have an accurate information and we touch all the hydrants on a yearly basis, so we could comply with the ISO standard, and more importantly, as the development were coming in, to make sure that we do these what Mr. Zelman called dynamic tests, and we make sure that there's a capacity, and that also ties up with the capacity letter that issue at DSD as well. So that was earlier on, And all of these things are running on a separate, on a parallel path, hopefully at some stage. On the water side, we would have all of these converge in one spot, and we would have a similar setup as on the sewer side, and ultimately all of these going into the
Asset
asset
management.
management system.
Okay, and just one last question on that. When this consultant is hired to actually map the system and get it in GIS so that it's there, are they going to be doing condition? Or
No,
they're only
the-
gonna be
no,
doing the
this-
size
this-
of the pipe and,
Right now, the effort, as we have it in the regulatory requirement, is to map the system. And for us also to, again, map the system.
All right,
That's,
so
that's what it is. At some stage in the future, we probably have to engage in some kind of similar analysis as looking at the condition and so.
okay, so that when we did actually have a map of the system and you put in all the dots for the breaks,
Yes,
okay? You could actually see where are the most vulnerable parts of the system and start to think about prioritizing.
yeah, I mean, it'll be a comprehensive way of looking at it, same way Hazen looked at it, in the sense you would consider a variety of factors: age, material of pipe,
Same
brakes, history of brakes, valves and connectivity and all that stuff. All of these will be considered along with the standard methodology of risk of failure, consequence of failure, and so forth.
So it's safe to say, I think, Abby, that there's a lot of work still to do on the water side.
Yeah, I mean, everybody on the table know we did
Yes.
kind of the sewer ahead of the water, and we have our homework on the water side, but this is moving in the forward direction. And as I said, our hope that within the next 5 years or so, we would have all of these in the asset management, and then we could do a lot more analytical stuff in the asset management software.
Okay, can we, anybody have any more questions on that, or can we move on to the communication regarding the moratorium and feedback from Public Works on how the condition of infrastructure is included? Can we move on to that? All right, you saw the letter from the memo from the city manager in backup, and he did as Commissioner Sorensen actually asked them to do, and they went and they consulted with a number of local jurisdictions in our area to see if they incorporate condition. And I think that essentially the answer is they do it administratively somehow, but it's not codified. And when we left this discussion the last time, we were all high on how wonderful we had all come to this nice decision. And there were two questions. How are we gonna incorporate this into the development review process? No moratorium, but condition of infrastructure was so important, it needed to be incorporated somehow, administratively or via ordinance, somehow. And that's where we still are at this point. And I spoke to Dwayne in the parking lot a couple of days ago, and I said, are you ready to opine on whether or not there's any way in ordinance we could do this? And he said he wasn't ready. And he was not coming today because he wasn't ready. I said, when will you be ready? He said, maybe September. I said, fine, come in September and give us your opinion. I mean, his opinion may be it's not possible, but we need to have a definitive answer if it's possible some way in ordinance to put condition. The other way of doing this is administratively. And Raj had said that he would come back with some ideas about how it could be incorporated administratively in the letters perhaps, or in the spreadsheet. And obviously Raj is not here. So I don't know that, has any progress been made on that, Avi?
Not to my knowledge. I have to consult the staff to see if Raj has discussed with them any particular methodology or what is meant by administratively doing it. The only thing that I have and I looked at are the two memorandum that are issued by the city manager. The one issued on April 19 and the one that is issued on June 15. I don't have any additional information beyond those two.
Understandable. So perhaps we should, after we discuss this a little more, perhaps we should continue this on the next agenda and see if, give you some time to think on this. Yes, Peter.
So, in the current email from the city manager.
Yeah.
He references the city of Deerfield Beach doing a separate conceptual package modelled on Sunrise. So I think it's saying it's modelled on the city of Sunrise. And the city of Sunrise is an interesting place because the city manager is an engineer. So I would be interested if this survey could include, and maybe they haven't replied yet, could include the city of Sunrise. And then with respect to an ordinance or administratively, I'm not expecting to see an ordinance written that somehow bases approval of a development on, in any way, on condition of the infrastructure. What I would anticipate is possible, preferably by ordinance, and it is a legal point, obviously, is that it's written into the ordinance that the condition of the infrastructure that will be impacted, i.e. any kind of additional load placed onto it, will be reported during the development review and approval process. So there will be a requirement that somewhere in the submitted application package, there will be a report on this development places additional load on this infrastructure, which we know is fine, medium risk, high risk. That's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. And I think it's better by ordinance because then it can never be overlooked. I think we've all accepted that no approvals can be predicated on unsatisfactory condition, except possibly in a case where there's a major development that's adding fantastic amount to a high-risk piece of infrastructure, and an engineer can say almost unequivocally that it is likely to fail if you place this load on it.
Does everybody agree? I mean, I think that was our consensus at the meeting, at the
So
last
what-
meeting, was it's not,
What you're saying is staff, I believe, already does.
well, let's say I hope,
Well,
And in
staff
some
will tell you-
cases they do.
Staff will tell you.
they do, okay,
So-
okay.
So if we say like hope, we're saying.
Well, no, I don't mean it.
No, we're
to say
saying
no.
that when I, as a citizen, go to the package in
And
P&Z,
I didn't really finish what I was saying. So what we're saying is that the staff does require that, as far as we know, as far as the staff, they do that. What we're asking is that analysis be made public. Correct?
Essentially.
I mean, that's and the long and short of it is that that be part of included in the DRC.
I think that's what Raj was talking about, when he
Okay,
said he was
okay,
gonna
well,
include that in the letter. And it's important, I think Jackie brought this up, she's on P&Z, and she said, well, I look at these letters, and I wanna be sure that somebody looked at conditions.
So in addition to the paragraph, additional paragraph added as any impact that they see on equipment, on system, not a snuff, that either has to be remedied.
I don't
Or is it
even
like
think
an
we have to-
assessment? It's like an existing
No,
assessment?
it's
Is, for instance, staff reviews the DRC, there's a piece of sewer, it's 300 feet long.
Right.
So they go to the development and say, listen, I'm gonna do this sewer, or else you gotta wait. Obviously, I'll make that part of the approval and we'll do that. So it's done on kind of an opaque basis, where what's needed is in the letter to say, staff has identified that there is a 12-inch gravity main located in this street, it's this long, it's gonna be impacted by this, and our solution is to develop or replace it. Our solution is that it's being, there's a lift station that this impacts the developers upgrading the lift station, or we're gonna do it before the CO. So basically to explain.
That's very reasonable, that's very reasonable.
and personally, I'd also like to see, it's not just localized, I would like
Gotta
to
go all the
see the ongoing demands on the water treatment plant.
That's
And
done in the capacity, handled in the capacity.
it is in the capacity, but what you don't get now is you don't see the increase in the, because you have this situation of committed demand, you understand this, Charlie, and when it drops off and when it doesn't. So that spreadsheet which we've seen of the developments and how much flow they're putting in there and how long that flow is committed for is kind of useful to see as well.
But that's really better to be reported on a timely basis to the commission than that project. Each project is so small that
Doesn't matter.
incrementally it
You
doesn't
can't
really mean anything.
It doesn't even show up on the chart.
But if it really, the staff should come back to the commission, really, and say, hey, this is where we are, and this is part of the annual reporting. The commission or the committee or whoever needs to know it, where we are in the big picture.
Okay,
And
well,
they've collected all this existing condition data
There's a
through.
spreadsheet that's massive. You know,
Yeah.
that just, you could spend a month studying it. You will have no
Well,
sorts.
But I have seen, for example, not to be specific, but I have seen different developments. And when you look at the capacity on the water treatment plant, it's had different numbers with it, both in terms of the total capacity and the committed demand. So it sort of moves around. And when you see that, it's sort of disturbing, which is the correct number.
well, I think Charlie explained some of it. It changes. It's that you can never do a chart of the capacity that's already committed versus the new flow, because that number keeps changing. So I think your point to our being the value of us monitoring situations, maybe every 6 months we get a snapshot of the 6-month picture and take a look. Again, that's one of the things perhaps we want to talk about with them at our workshop is even though we did not recommend that capacity be a limiting factor on development vis-a-vis a moratorium, we're concerned that on a maybe semi-annual basis, we should be reviewing the capacity versus the demand to make sure that everything's okay. And the guys probably do it, but they do it somewhere in a room in engineering, and nobody ever sees it, and nobody knows that somebody is really keeping an eye on this.
That's the
So,
beauty of the computer analysis that you can look at and start to predict when your existing transmission mains and then go out to the smaller distribution mains become inadequate.
well,
because-
that's they're going to be
The
working on
engineering
that.
department, is a marketing person.
Right.
I've heard about the guys looking for a job. Very good at it, I think, Raj.
Okay. All right. I think we can move on.
Contact with.
I think Abby is going to opine on how he wants to, what his recommendations are to do what you're suggesting. And the city attorney will be here in September to opine yes, no, maybe on an ordinance. So we'll keep that on the agenda. Okay, additional details regarding the unsolicited proposal for the water plant. Here we are in a somewhat similar position to the tunnel. We got an unsolicited proposal, but it's a lot more further down the line, so it looks like somebody's about to tell us something about it.
So we got a second proposal.
We
We got a second proposal and we're reviewing it right now. We got until September 27th, I believe, to receive any additional unsolicited proposals.
So you have an actual proposal with more than a page describing what they want to do.
Yes.
Can we see it?
No, I mean, it's the same issue.
It's under the
Subject
P3
to the
statute.
statute and disclosure, and
Right.
we
Well,
can discuss. It's not, it's not.
So-
It's up to the proposal.
We cannot make copies of it, we cannot email it, we can, so.
I'm assuming the commission has seen it.
But clearly, it would be addressed to them.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So
mean, they would not submit a financial
To you.
proposal to me.
I think
I don't
that,
have no money.
yeah, but I think at the end of this period, we're gonna come with recommendations to them, to those different proposals. At that time, I imagine we can disclose that information, but until that period is there until September 27 or whatever period we have to analyze these proposals, we can disclose any information.
Okay, well, how does this relate to the fact that we spent a year fooling around with a city representative, a consultant contract for a city's, what did we call them? What did they call them?
Owners
rep.
An owner's rep, to hire somebody to help us in this process, when now all of a sudden we have two proposals on the table to build it.
And we will probably engage them once we have all the.
Let me ask this, I know it's been protracted out with the pilot study for the Prospect well field on water and the best type of treatment that utilized. Did that ever become final?
No, that's the next item, and no.
Oh.
Yeah, that's on the agenda.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, when September 27 comes, then that's the deadline. At that point, we're gonna take all the proposals and see what's the best option for the city, and we're gonna have them also analyzed by Ernest Young, who will take care of all the financial analysis. So they're engaged. Any proposal that we.
You know what really bothers me, and I've still got a heartburn on it, is the fact that you got the executive airport that's planning to extend their westerly runway into, not just to, but into Prospect Wellfield. You know, that, sure, there's been coordination on that, but that's going to kill a lot of wells, and then if you're going to put a plant there on the new water treatment plant, you're going to have height restrictions from the FAA that you can't. You're going to have to go further west. So these are the type of the things that I see, and I'm sitting there. I don't see how you want to go in there and mess up your well field.
Yeah, we're gonna coordinate with them, make sure that all those restrictions apply, and and that we have enough space. There is a lot of space on the well field, and we're planning to use the same well. We might have to rehab some of the wells according to the study we're gonna do next, but that's.
I'm a worrywart, but I mean that's just.
No, that's good points. Yes, Peter.
So is there a date by which any more unsolicited proposals have to be submitted by? And at that point, do they become public? At the end of there's a solicitation period, a blackout period for other people to submit, and at the end of that time, are they automatically public, or you know?
I don't know that for sure. I think the legal folks upstairs will have to opine based on the statute, the way it's read. I don't know, but at this stage, they're not subject to disclosure according to the statute. But maybe at some stage later on, I don't know.
I'm not sure
either.
either.
That
I do know.
more legal than technical.
I do know part of the logic behind this, that if I go propose something and say, I'll do this for the city, pay me $1 million. If it becomes public, then a competitor can come in and say, I'll do it for $1.01 million. That's the reasoning behind it.
$99.
Yeah, whatever it
Undercut
is.
you.
So, yeah, 990, yeah. So, but in terms of the rules, in terms of when it does become public, that's one I'm not sure of either. Fortunately, our P3 is not. Nobody's seen it.
So the way these proposals work, a company might suggest, hey, I want to build a plant using this technology, this technology, this time. Then if somebody else sees that, they might come with a better solution and make it more financially,
Oh, and would that be terrible?
Yeah, or somebody thinks of.
That would be wonderful.
No,
That
but
would not be
somebody thinks
terrible.
of the greatest idea since sliced bread. And somebody just copies it. So here somebody says, hey, I figured out a way to do this, where I can do it much more efficient, right? I can do different construction process that'll save the city a lot of money. And then the competitor just says, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it, and I'll do it for $1 less. And the other guy, work their ass off to come up with a solution.
So it's
I am Charlie.
Huh?
But you've got to trust your commission. That's what it comes down to, is the commission.
Because I remember Lockhart, when we went through this thing with Lockhart, eventually there was big presentations, competing presentations at the commission of the two proposals.
I believe it gets to that point after they get, the big thing is the dark period where the people can come and make competing.
And there might be a case where we ask them to come and present all their options after we analyze all the proposals and see what. There might be 10 proposals that we might say 3 of these really don't match what we want, and we might put those away and call 7 companies to do it.
So the purpose of the staff review is to tell the commission, we've looked at these and we think that these are what we recommend to do.
Right, if somebody comes with something that is completely out of left field, that we know it's not gonna work, we're not gonna.
And the commission could decide not to do any of it.
That's right. You know, that's the interesting thing about all these
We're all
proposals.
unsolicited.
We can go through this whole system and the city can say, well, thank you guys, but
We're gonna go
not
through our
really.
traditional process. We're gonna
Yeah.
do a set of plans and go out for an RFP or an RFQ.
Right, which is what people are, some people are asking them to do with the one-stop shop. Even after all of this, they're asking them, no, just say no and
A
we'll,
lot of, yeah, that's,
well, it's a,
Yeah, right
it's a
across
park
the.
downtown.
there's somebody that wants to move the concert venue from Hershey Park. There's been a varying number of versions, which I know. Underground garage,
Right.
garage with a parking lot.
Somebody thinks that
Senator
building a
Ralph did take
concert
care of it.
venue in the middle of a residential neighborhood is a swell idea.
Well, and
Just
it's,
swell.
it's, get a big player, so. The bright light station, you made it a concert.
Yeah, right,
So
thank you.
I don't know where the pull is for the commission, but it's got some traction.
You know what?
I understand.
One could say that under our mission to look at parks, we could opine on that, and then we get killed. I mean, you know, sometimes there are things happening that are just not our, it
It's as a
doesn't help
citizen-
our commission.
as a
We can't add any value to that
As a citizen,
discussion.
it's good. You should know
That's right, individually.
what your concerns are, and that, me, I use the analogy, you know, I'm the chairman of the Downtown Development Authority this year. If we decided to take Isaac Plaza,
That's right.
and let's say we want to make a lot of money and sell it to a condo, they'd kill us. What is that? So this is another park here that's the same size, actually it's bigger. To lose that concert venue, he's gonna make a park, but none of us have seen it, but yeah. this is
Oh,
very-
I've seen it. You know,
Yeah,
you know what
I've
their
seen-
park
which
is?
version?
The latest version, I think. It's a sloped area to the concert venue
It's
stage.
basically seating.
It's seating for the outdoor who puts a concert venue in the middle of a residential neighborhood?
We have one over at Isaac Plaza. We're redoing that park and we're and
Uh-huh.
replace it with a waterfront restaurant.
Okay.
But we have
We're-
supposed to
we're
be
not gonna-
acquiring parks, aren't we? With the bond money?
Exactly.
Well, we're not gonna solve that problem here at 4:04 in the
It's
afternoon.
contentious.
So, let's move along. All right, update on the proposed pilot study at the Prospect Wellfield and 5 Walk Plan. How's that going?
So we were hoping to have a final report today, but we had a lot of comments back to the consultant. So we waited on their response. Hopefully we should have it by the next one.
Okay, so we'll leave this on the agenda for the next. Excellent. Okay,
Unless we go back and forth, but hopefully we should be done.
and is this involves the clarity of the water methodology to get it clean up? Okay, good, all right. I know someone who'll be very happy. Okay, new business, planning for the workshop with the commission. All right, we started talking about that. We had a lot of good discussion about that. The only other thing I want to bring to your attention is, I believe we should go in there with something in our hands and not just walk in and talk. And one of the things I asked the staff to do was to put together a booklet, one of those nice booklets, of all the material we have reviewed since the beginning of our committee. And it is not an insignificant, look, I'll get to that, it's not this. But if you looked at your backup material, Patricia has put together a list, or is beginning to put together a list. I don't know if it's complete yet, she can tell us. Is it complete of everything yet, or are you still working on it?
What's in here is comprehensive of everything I found in your backup.
Uh-huh.
So that's everything I found.
Okay, all the backup material from all of our meetings.
Right, that's from August of 2020.
Thank you very much for that work, okay? So, and it's impressive, the amount of stuff that we've reviewed at our meetings, and I wanna go in and give them back, so that they, know what we've been doing for the last couple of months. I also wanna go in with a sort of a one-page, handout to them of what's happened in our deliberations. I gave you a draft that Peter had asked me at the last meeting to update that draft that I had done previously, before we actually made a decision on the moratorium. And so I updated it, and while it looks like a lot, because it's big print, this can all be condensed, into one page. And it's really just a summary for them.
Very good.
Thank you. And it's really just a summary for them of what we've done to give them the background of the previous ITF, because they probably forgot about everything that happened in that period of time. And then just give them a little, what we've been doing since we started meeting again in August, so that they know that, we've been paying a lot of attention, doing a lot of work, and that this discussion that we want to have with them is a serious discussion that they need to pay some attention to. And they need to give us some guidance on going forward. Apropos the discussion we had here, monitoring versus looking deeper into some systems like the water and the stormwater systems, maybe being a forum for new sustainability initiatives. They would love that, I think. And what we said, another couple of things. Monitoring, I said monitoring. All the things we talked about, I'll go back to the minutes and I'll make a list of all the things. So I think we should have something in our hands to give to them. That's always good to walk into a meeting with something to put on the table. And I think we're going to have a really good discussion with them. We have one more meeting before the 9th or the second meeting in September. So if you would give this a look and see if I missed anything, if you would give the information to Patricia, because you can't send it to me directly, I will incorporate it, I will clean this up, I will condense this, and I will send it to Patricia, who will send it out, so we can have a last look at it at our September meeting if you think it's covered everything in the right way, so that we could, present it to you. So, that's, does anybody want to continue discussing?
Some mechanics of that, so there'll be an
Mechanics,
ITF meeting on the 7th of September.
Did you say it was the 7th?
That's a Tuesday.
9th.
Oh, I thought the
Yeah,
9th
they
was.
moved it to the Thursday meeting. I think it's because of the holiday. Did they move it because of the holiday? The commission meeting, they moved it.
There is a series of commission meetings next month to bring in the budget
Oh, the
item
budget.
and the budget ordinance and all of that.
So he was looking at the 9th, or the next one.
That's the meeting they're looking at for the joint meeting with the city commission.
Yes.
When do we
Yes.
meet?
And then when do we meet?
Right.
The ITF.
Oh, we meet at the first Wednesday, the first Monday of the month.
That's the 6th.
That's Labor Day.
That's Labor Day.
Oh, we should talk about that, gentlemen, under new
13th,
business. We
All right,
should
you
talk
can
about it.
conversation.
I forgot all about that.
It was the 13th.
All right, before we leave, we have to deal with that. Okay, we'll have to deal with that. All right, as Matt, it's 4:10 already, so, you all took a look, and let's take a look at item number 6. Have you all taken a look at the water and sewer rates report? And that's just a monitoring, that's an ongoing thing. A CIP financial report similarly. What's the progress, how many projects have moved from point A to point B? That's a monitoring thing. Impact fee usage, okay, that's interesting. All right, remember at our last meeting, we discovered somewhat to our, that we didn't know that some of the impact fees were used to pay the interest on the bonds. And we asked them to take a look at that and tell us, a little more information about that. And to wit, they sent us the legislation, which says that you cannot use it to pay off debt unless there is a connection to capacity issues. Did anybody get a chance to read that? I'll show it to you. It's right, it's back here. It's the last thing. Monitoring. Here it is.
Yeah.
This is the legislation, and it's number I down here. Revenues generated by the impact fee may not be used in whole or part to pay existing debt or for previously approved projects unless the expenditure is reasonably connected to or has a rational nexus with the increased impact generated by new residential or non-residential construction. So I think it's very clear that the attorneys have opined that it is an appropriate use of impact fees to pay the interest on the bonds. whether it's the right decision to make or not, reasonable people can disagree, but, and I
The
don't know.
nexus is there, the nexus is there.
So I think it's a problem. So that's the answer to, was it a problem? It's not a problem. Okay? I don't think we need to go any further into that. Yes.
So it's just suggest that it's not on the agenda. If anybody had any questions or thoughts, the two things that came in, one was the February 28th, 2019 observation that the jet high rise thing that I noticed some structural damage, and then the second item would be
The structural
item,
damage.
the article that I wrote.
Okay, all right.
If there's any questions quickly.
I have a question on impact.
Impact fees, yes.
So on impact fees, does the money that is collected from water fees have to be used for water project and the same for sewer?
I think it's in there.
Yes, sir.
And are you sure it is? Because if you look at these numbers, are you sure that's the case?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In the past, we did not separate the impact fees out, Madam Chair and committee members. We had that all in the water and sewer fund, and it benefited all the water and sewer increased capacity projects. Some 2.5 years ago, we separated them out into their respective funds. So that's what you see, the accumulation of dollars here, both last year and the current year to date. Those are separated out and utilized specifically for projects that increase capacity. So if it's a 4-inch and it's replaced with a 6-inch, that's recognized as an increase in capacity.
So that 1.8 million that is proposed to go toward the C51 reservoir, we can say, or it's true, that all of that money will have come from water fees in the first place.
Yes, sir. Yes. As they're collected over at DSD planning and the permit fee, it is collected separately and safeguarded separately for exclusive projects.
Thank you.
Good on you, because the legislation really has come down hard on that, so
Yes.
we're good, we're good.
Yes, thank you.
All right, excellent. Okay, so, since we finished with the items in the agenda, Roosevelt will probably say we can't do this, but he's not here. So, we have to deal with the issue of the meeting in September. So everybody, let's get our calendars out and see what's what. Let's look at September. Calendar, September. Not calendar. Calendar.
I don't.
All right, here we go. September. So September 6th, oh my goodness. If we go to the 13th, we might miss the commission meeting. If we go to August 30th, we will be before the commission meeting. And that's like 1, 2, 3. How about August 30th, guys? The next one will be August 30th? How does that look?
Yeah, so
All right, excellent. Do we need to make a motion to change the date of the meeting to August 30th? Or just by consensus? Let's do it,
I'll move that we change the next meeting to
August 30th.
Monday, August the 30th. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Ralph, So Peter made the motion, Ralph seconded it. Everybody in favor? Aye? Excellent. So we solved that problem lickety-split. Ralph, you wanted to say a few words?
Well, I just wondered if anybody had any questions or comments on that documentation. And there's actually two documents or one email that had about 2.5 years ago concerned with some structural cracks that I noticed in a new building, the jet stop building that's right kind of northwest of the Nova Southeastern University art place there. In fact, I was there attending a meeting. You were there too.
Was I? I didn't notice the cracks. And you see, I don't look at the cracks. See,
At
the
the
cracks.
Nova Southeast University Art Center. But I parked up on the roof parking lot, and I was with Paul Berg, at that time the works director, and I got out and I saw about an 8 to 9 foot crack in the parking deck, concrete deck, and I thought that looks a little bit more vicious than a shrinkage crack. And so I noticed all others, you know, up there as well as the ramps going up to the roof and down the back, the vehicle ramps. And so I asked Paul if he would check that out, somebody, because it's the type of thing that you just, you know, you look at, and, you have some concerns. I mean, my previous life, I was involved with Broward County. I think somebody here might remember me there. Where we had the $300 million consolidated rental car facility structure. It was a 9-story structure, and I was responsible for that as the administrator on that. And I was, micromanaging out there, looking at everything. But so I've got just a little knowledge of seeing things that shouldn't be, like slippage. If they had 3/10 the rebar, and of course the concrete's supposed to cure, and then if they release it, it's supposed to try to compress it to make the concrete stronger. And so that's the first thing that I thought. It was so new that it was, I had concerns on it. So
Where was this?
this was at the just south of Broward here, just east, a little bit north of the Nova Southeastern University Art Center, where the state of address was given on August the 28th, 2019. And they also had some rewards for employee rewards there, or rewards for citizens.
What streets?
And there's what they call a jet stop on top of that.
The city garage?
The city garage.
City garage.
City garage.
That's the city garage.
Oh, wait, I haven't worked there. What do you mean it's the
You
city
took over
garage?
that building?
Yeah.
The city
That's-
garage?
It's falling
I guess that's
apart.
Yeah.
It's falling apart.
Oh, well, wait, this brings up what
So you want to talk
Jeremy
about
brought up.
infrastructure?
Yeah.
It's, as I understand it, from the Styles people who were kind of bitching about not getting that free. Actually, that was an RFP that the city went away from, was the top deck project.
Well, that's what I had raised, and I'd asked Paul Berg at the time. I said, "Can you get somebody to check that out? Because that looks highly suspicious to me."
That's a post-tension building, and at the time it was built, it was very innovative because it has very thin slabs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're up the top of the building and there's vehicles driving around, you feel the building shake.
Well, this is something
So-
that's within our bailiwick.
So that's what those emails were. It showed my contacting Paul Berg. Paul Berg got back to me and said he had somebody look at it, and he reported it. And then with this Surfside thing that happened, it woke up some dead brain cells up there and said, "Gosh, I really never did get a feedback on that," and that worried me. So then I got a hold of the city manager and I asked if this is what happened. I would really like to, find out about it. I think it's, paramount that the city finds out about it. They're not,
That's transportation mobility.
Well, when one of our things was to look at the condition of city-owned buildings. So what we got
That's a problem.
what we got in that look-see was 6 buildings that had done their 40-year inspections. Yeah, and one of them was the police station. Actually, they only found electricity and plumbing issues,
well,
because that's all the statute says. The statute only says, that kind of stuff.
when I went through that in
Yeah.
early 2017, I told the police chief and the lieutenants up there, I said, if I was inspector, I'd have condemned this building. They had differential settlement, they had,
Well, we're
I'm
gonna
not
fix
gonna
it.
waste
We're
time there.
gonna make a new one.
But that's, the garage, I think, would be done right.
okay.
The transportation mobility.
Yes,
I'm
so,
thinking it's more than 40 years old, because I'm thinking it was built in the 70s.
What was that?
The city's
garage.
parking garage we're talking about.
we're talking about the city parking garage.
Okay, I thought it was a new,
No.
No, if it's the same building, the city parking
He lived
garage
on town.
What the hell is?
with the road, with the road going underneath,
I park there
that's
all the
like
time.
70s, I think.
wow,
So I would think it's had one 40-year inspection at
Well,
least.
don't count
by
on
higher
that.
math, it should.
Yeah.
Well-
That's one that, based on Surfside, should definitely be inspected.
Well, I think Gerald brought up something. We have not focused on this. We have not focused on the condition of city-owned buildings, garages, office buildings,
City Hall.
city hall. We haven't focused on any of that. That's like bridges, all right? So there are systems, that we have not had enough time to look at. And I think, we should put that on the table as well. I mean, there's no way we're gonna do anything comprehensive in 7 months.
I'm
So
wondering.
if you're interested, Commission, that we continue that, then you'll have to start thinking about whether you're gonna extend our mission, change our mission, whatever, yeah.
I'm wondering if we could ask Abby to have someone place a call to Ben Rogers and say I agree with you. I'm a little concerned about that parking structure. City parking garage, can they check out whether it's had its 40-year inspection and take another, if so, and it's not due, one at the 10-year point after, have somebody take a look at it. I agree with Ralph.
I think
Well,
under,
and in the spirit of Surfside, was there a report issued? Is there any open items that need to be addressed?
Yeah, that's what we want to find out about the parking garage.
I believe Styles provided.
oh, that's not good, because if anything happens,
Oh, man.
we're all, there's not enough money to handle something like that. If it collapses, there's not enough money in the city of Fort Lauderdale to handle
Well,
it.
the garage, yeah, that's a big issue. Gosh, obsolete in the demand.
True.
It's not a well understood building because it is a thin slab, post tension building, very early example of that type of building.
Okay, well,
It's like a cord
perhaps
slab.
on our next
It's like
agenda,
a cord slab.
Post tension.
No,
They
it's,
do it, stretch, do it, cable, stretch.
It's like a cord slab
And then they
they
bridge.
tighten them up.
Abby, on the next agenda, Tricia, Abby, perhaps we should explore again the condition of city-owned buildings. I mean, I don't mean that you should go out and do a whole,
No, I
Think
mean,
of work on
there's a couple of things. I think the city, a few years back, did the inspection report on a series of buildings.
yeah, 6 of them.
And specifically in relation to the Surfside situation, clearly that's gonna take a lot of time. A lot of
There's no indication, they don't know, I mean, they've been in their recovery process.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a
There's
lot of
nothing-
time by specialists to determine the cost.
Sure.
I think if, Mr. Zeltman has a concern on the city garage, as Mr. Ladd said, that's, Ben Rogers at DAM, they operate that, garage, and I don't know if there's a recent report on that. But certainly we could bring it to, Ben attention to see what he's got, if he's got a report.
Well, he's in charge of all the garages, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what we should do is we should ask him to come and say, have you taken a look at all your garages? Yeah, let's put him on the agenda.
Zoltan guy's causing trouble again.
No, Mr. Zelman's looking out for all of us.
I got your back.
It's not.
All right.
Well, also, for everybody's benefit, I think that issue came up in the city commission, last city commission at night where, Mr. Travers from the building department came in and he indicated that, anybody who's calling, regarding a situation, they have sent folks out there to inspect. So, both the building department and the building officials are involved with this. And I think that particular little video was also resubmitted through StratCom a couple of days after the commission, so.
I'll go look at it.
Yeah, there's a process
look at
that he outlined, and Mr. Travers at DSD, if there's any questions with regard to their process, can answer those, but, definitely, a lot of these things are happening and surfacing, and, that building Surfside is a recent building, but these things don't happen overnight. There's gonna be an FBI investigation, it's gonna be structural expert, it's probably be a couple of years or more before that report comes up.
So in addition to Ben Rogers, and maybe, in addition to Ben Rogers, could we perhaps even have that building official here?
We could request somebody from
Request them from
the
there.
building department come in for.
Gerald?
Building
I think we
official
could
did
have him-
contact me to get the address.
Okay.
And I was on Google aerial, and I was sitting there and I said, yeah, it's right.
Which reinforced the statement that I just said, anybody who's contacting them, and they can proactive approach and
Yeah, but
send
my-
them folks to check it.
But my question is, that's not proactive,
There's a structural report to the public record.
Yeah.
which somebody should be aware of, but somebody should be, I would think that rather than being reactive, we should be proactive. And in light of what,
Would be to ask for a copy of the report.
I have asked for that from the building official, but I doubt.
I can call Spoutez and ask. And then I'll
Okay.
send it to the
Central.
staff, central
right,
portal. Let
okay.
me see if I can get it.
Madam Chair, may I be excused? I have
Yes,
to run
as a
to
matter
a
of fact,
4:30 meeting.
thank you very much.
Motion to
And we're at
adjourn.
motion to adjourn, everybody. Thank you very much. I will see you August 30th. Have a wonderful August. Relax, enjoy, have a great August.
Somebody next door.